Thank you so much for that introduction, Charlie Jane. I am part Dutch, if that counts for some truth there. So the first poem I'm going to read for you all tonight, it is Naturopathic Medical Week, and I am in naturopathic medical school. So the first poem I'm going to read to you is not about the topic of resistance and antibiotics, but it does touch on, what can happen if you take too many in a short period of time. At least for me, it resulted in delirium. An exploration after 6,000 milligrams of amoxicillin. After she ate what felt like everything, she took to the taste of color and apologized only to the sun for not having noticed sooner how edible his yawns. Even the neighbor's crayons disappeared, 3 by 3 returning, little nubs with lip shine. Sometime after midnight, there were rumors. Someone had vamped Van Gogh, unrolled his starry night like billboard scroll, sending bicycles soaring, the road steering itself. And she went on, her sampler a sip from what once was church, now mosque, a tulip field, spilt stamen, pistol. And when she was finished, her body thick with theft, her tongue cut on canvas, a train station needle reused. All color bled together, and she no longer hungry belched canals, and she no longer thirsty wept. The second poem I'm going to read is, thank you. And I should say thank you to Two Sylvia's Press. This is their first full-length poetry collection as well as mine. It's a small press up in Kingston, Washington, and this just came out a couple of weeks ago. And I skipped some school to be here today. So my father was already a practicing physician in India when he came over here with $8 in his pocket and an internship. And he never complained, even though he had to redo a lot of his medical training and gave up a lot of his cultural roots to be here. So I thought I'd write a poem for him. It's called The Cardiologist Speaks. I treated mango trees for the ripeness of DC and spring, retrained my voice to lose my Malayalam accent, retrained myself to be the medical model, allopathic, the sole trace of India, my skin. On Connecticut Avenue, I shared a flat with an extended family of cockroaches. The never-ending tale of the tenant in 14A who swallowed one, how he awoke to the sound of crunching, his jaw operating solo. In the hospital, it was worse. 36-hour shifts and the tea never strong enough. No one knew to boil the water twice. I had to bring my own loose leaf, delivered from a friend of a friend of a family member from Kerala. Everyone here drank coffee, the kind that makes you shake, the kind that could be dangerous while conducting medical procedures. For years, I was monitored. Rules, regulations fastened to me like the ECG pads I adhered to my patient's chests. I learned how to palpate the pulse of the hospital, to translate what I knew from what was missing in their eyes, why I would order another test, when to follow code. They would not believe me if I shared what I found, so much longing misread for failure. So I am going to read one poem from my Dutch roots, and most of my Dutch poems actually touch on the war, so bear with me, it's going to get even more dark. But my mother was born in Rotterdam after it had been razed to the ground, and her father was part of the resistance. And while he was fighting in the resistance, he was also training for a speed skating competition, which only happens when all the water freezes. It's called the 11 City Tour. And the first time he tried to do this, his eye froze, and he kept going. He didn't make it, but he did make it the second time round. As in Dutch, as in you. It takes 28 years plus 355 days to learn enough about your family. Understand the great uncle beyond his hair, always swooped in half figure 8. Those trademark eyes glacial, even in black and white. Before your mother unwound with disease, her father's ashes released, who would discuss the war, detail every eldest son whose name was Hank. Unphotographed years pause it in your mother's shoulders, her brother's upper hunch, the everything that was never discussed at dinner. Why butterflies are messengers remembered from torture chambers. Their inscription, the lesson for your grandfather's brothers who made their bodies slight as insect for escape. And how the women, the wives vanished, their children packed for the country. Worry, ushered like her chief, underneath sleeve or daring between breasts. No wonder your grandfather trusted a sharp blade. The first push from bank, the cinnamon roll from windmill on the opposite side of the lake. Now, by the waters too warm to freeze, your mother speaks and speaks, unbinds the scheme behind her father's collection of antique skates. Here, a host of reasons to keep the family sealed in a bed of ice. After completing the MCAT and before returning to the Northwest, my room fills with longing. It wasn't Amsterdam, but you rode without helmet through the streets of Oakland all the way to Alameda, where the dams of everything I held threatened to overflow through each open window that kept the heat from catching my linens on fire. The loft walls with southern exposure, not the sole cause of combustion, still the principle with whatever string of monomers linked to form the mattress foam, too close to something spontaneous. But this wasn't a physical emergency, nothing leaping at my bed, and you arrived to collect whatever I had. The medical college admissions text never highlighted yet searched for potential. You gathered me from every direction, packed those plastics full with garments, the vacuum cleaner reducing excess oxygen, more space for me to leave. The last poem I'm going to read, it comes from the experience of when I decided to go medical. I knew I had to get over this squeamishness. I used to be the person who would pass out at the thought of blood. And you get over it pretty quickly when you get thrown into gross anatomy lab and then what we lovingly term as stab lab, which is the poem that I'm going to read for you. But I will say, when you're sitting on the other side of a needle, it's amazing how many things can go wrong that you wouldn't expect. And sometimes you do everything right, and yet you don't get blood for some reason because the person's vein rolls, or they're dehydrated, or who knows what. But this poem is for that. My feeling for stab lab is like a left to right shunt, progressing to a right to left shunt, something that requires attention before potential cyanosis. 1. If I told you my first was with a butterfly, that it took 3 times before I could stick, the instructor priming me with, what will it take? And I couldn't answer to failure, but the flash that followed, far more electric than anything I had ever, a steady crimson filling a tiger top, the shock of placing a 23G with accuracy, the unexpected heat of letting. 2. In this chapter, I discover the key between precision and accuracy. I am 0 for 4, and I skipped a night of fairies and you, for hours upon hours of precisely missing the median cubital. some lovely part of a dorsal venous network that likes to shake it to the left while my anchor retreats. I am reminded this isn't metaphor. I follow anything but an apparent aquamarine as I coin the term Invisivane, retract my needle, and leave. 3. Here you may find yourself disappointed. I thought you would know what you're doing. Here is where I wish I believed in sports other than hockey to give you some sweet stat rather than a puck in the face. 4. May I wow you with my delivery, a 1-2 butterfly syringe drawing 5 mils from the hand of the one we call bloodless. Laughter, the previously unknown trick of dilation, and that one errant freckle. I recommend you hang a right. Thank you.